乌托邦兼有不存在、完美社会两个意思，源于托马斯·摩尔所著的《乌托邦》一书，描述了一个自由、民主和博爱精神世界。乌托邦是人类思想意识中美好的社会。曾经有一个充满创新与探索精神的年代，人们聚集在一起，怀着创造更加公平与和谐社会的梦想。从文化到科技，从社会到环境，他们一起追寻乌托邦的憧憬，追求世界大同的目标。
多彩的自由城总是伴随着无休无止的争议，它是一个独特的地方。与其说它是一个社区，不如说它是一种生活方式。那么，自由城的无政府状态是他们想要的自由吗？这些在自由城日复一日生活的人，他们所追求的自由是什么样子的呢？那么，现在的 Freetown Christiania， 它的样貌是不是就是他们所追求的自由？到底什么才算是自由？是不是要做些什么事才是自由？那么是不是什么事都可以做是自由，还是什么事都不用做是自由？
自由城克里斯蒂亚尼亚在丹麦哥本哈根市中心，是独立运作的社区。他们拥有自己的旗帜、自己的法律和独特的生活方式。自由城占地17英亩。包括一个湖泊、一小片森林地区和一个充满文化活力的社区。40多年来，自由城证明了主流与另类文化能够彼此兼容。除了为民众提供一个另类的社区自治模式外，其独特韵味、提倡自由的社区精神，成了旅游热点。事实上，自由城的法律地位并非一蹴而就。而是政府与居民经过长达9年多的谈判，才能维持今时今日的风貌。
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
You must be
Kirsten.
Kirsten, right?
Yes.
So this is the map of Christiania.
Yes, this is the map of the whole area of Christiania. We have 34 hectares of land, and it's about 1.5 kilometers from one end to the other.
Oh, you're going to take me around?
I will. I'll be pleased to take you around, show
Thank
you
you.
everything. Come along. Christiania is a very colorful place.
It is.
And you see many paintings and graffitis all over. In fact, Christiania is also an artist-free town. We have more than 50 painters living here, and many actors and musicians.
所以呢，你一进来 Christiania 这里呢，你就会觉得这里艺术气息很浓啊，因为这里很多艺术家在这里生活，所以到处都可以看到色彩缤纷。Great, shall we? Is this outside of Christiania already?
No, this is also a part of Christiania. It's what we call the low rampart.
Oh.
On this side, we have the high rampart with the bastions where were placed cannons in the old days. And then there's the water grave, all artificially built up, and then the low rampart on the other side.
Wow, this place is so beautiful.
Yes, we had a local plan for Christiania back in 1990, and we knew it was going to be a problem because we were told to take away all the 60 houses that we had built in the fortification.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
所以也就是说，大概在1971年夏天的时候呢，那个时候这个地方已经成为了一个荒废的军事基地。那一些艺术家，还有一些无业游民，他们就搬到这里来，开始建起了他们自己的房子。那后来呢，当地政府认为这里是一个历史古迹，它是受保护的，所以呢，就跟他们达成了一个协议，把那些非常破、非常旧的房子呢，把它拆除掉。总共呢是拆除掉10间，剩下了50间。
当年正值哥本哈根的住房危机，民众生活条件艰苦。除了部分较为豪华的前军官宿舍之外， 多数住宅残旧不堪，更不用提会有供暖或污水处理的设施。于是，社区居民齐心协力，一起翻新和创建了今天我们看到的克里斯蒂亚尼亚自由城，一座独具一帜的社区。
Oh, is this somebody's house?
Yes, it's somebody who built it.
It's a very interesting looking house.
Yes.
看上去就好像是一个童话故事里面的屋子。
房子的主人本身是名木匠，运用从周围拆掉的老房子搜来的建材，花了20年时间建造了自己的理想国。
And he said that he was inspired by the beautiful windows that come from an old factory to make a house with 12 corners, almost round.
Kristen 说，居民为了能够亲近大自然，就把房子建在湖边和森林，即便处于城市，依然有着绿意盎然的气息。
The houses in Christiania is so beautiful. Can I just come in here and buy a property for myself?
That is not possible because we still have a common right to use here internally in Christiania. About 10 years ago, we bought a part of it, but we did not want to privatize. So we made our own foundation in here. So we all of us signed that we would not have a private ownership.
And it's also because you want to protect the nature here, and that's why it is difficult to build new houses. 所以它其实要等到人家搬出去了之后，然后在邻居的许可之下，你才可能可以搬进去这间房子。
这里原是既属于所有人，也不属于任何人的社区，如今已不再是无主地。经过长期抗争、司法诉讼后，丹麦政府同意自由城居民以7620万丹麦克朗购买下土地，争议声中落实自治。有居民反思购地一事，表示这虽然违背了没有人拥有土地的初衷，但只能用这方法解决。购地后的克里斯蒂亚尼亚租金上升了1倍哦。
所谓的租赁呢，就是以你的房子的大小，就是每平方米呢大概是32块，然后还有另外就是每一个人超过18岁的就必须给1300 krona。那这个钱呢就会放在 Christiania 的一个 community box。那这个钱呢就是用来还杂费啦、交税啊、水电费啊之类的。那么剩余的钱就是用来做维修。
以往这个废弃的军事基地军官楼房最为抢手。原因不外是设备齐全、入住方便，无政府、无权争、无私有财产，俨然一幅乌托邦的风貌。
Inside, it's a very old military place, and it was the officers of the army who were living here with their families. So there was everything: water, sanitary, electricity. It was easy to move into, and also it's a very nice surrounding.
They don't have to renovate. It's
Not much.
Already available.
Yeah, it was possible just to move in. Many other places, people moved into houses that had never been used for housing before, so they had to start from scratch.
Yes.
充满活力朝气的 Louis 从小在克里斯蒂亚尼亚长大，对此社区自由开放的风气爱恋难舍哦。
This is the living room.
Wow, this is nice. It's very cozy. I can imagine during winter you sit here in the fireplace and enjoy.
It's the best.
And what's in there?
This is the kitchen.
Nice little kitchen. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the job.
Wow. And this is your studio.
Yeah, this is where the magic happens.
Wow, beautiful. What kind of music do you make?
I would say pop music. It's just pop music.
Louis 觉得克里斯蒂亚尼亚的独特魅力有别于一般社区的刻板指示，随主人的性格、眼界与生活方式而展现出各自风格风貌，意趣满满。生于此的他，家人与朋友都住在社区里，相互照顾，却各自精彩。
Help me understand also what is your relationship like with your neighbors?
We know each other very, very well. It's very close bonded.
There's only about what, 900 people?
It's 900 people.
Yeah.
And every person almost knows each other. And I think that's also what creates Christiania into becoming this really close, small village in Copenhagen.
It is also known to be a city of freedom.
Yes.
What is your definition of freedom?
It's a funny question because in the beginning, it was so easy to understand. Freedom in Christiania. Okay, we had hippies. There was some kind of freedom movement, way bigger because it was needed at that time. Now the society have become more like a small village. People, they want to have a more safe life because complete freedom, nobody takes responsibility. That is also very stressful.
自由城最具争议性的就是大麻的使用态度。在70年代，居民不仅使用大麻，甚至把可卡因中毒品带到自由城，令城里的死亡率瞬间增加。
For the people who doesn't know the inside of Christiania, who only see the media's perspective, which is always a little on the edge. Like everybody assumes that everybody smokes weed in Christiania, but it's really not true. I don't smoke weed. A lot of people here actually lives a very normal life.
从 Louis 的口中，我了解到 Christiania 他们早期所谓的自由呢，是放纵的，是无拘无束、自由自在的。但是随着时间的改变，这个所谓的自由呢，也开始变成是一种良知的约束，对于自己的生活、自己的行为是要负上责任的。那到了后来，他们得到了这个自由之后，他们就懂得珍惜，而且也知道这个自由来得不容易。
克里斯蒂亚尼亚强调以和平和爱为社区基调，集体决策不受约束。这个念想是否变质了呢？是否能在社区内这家接近50年的酒馆里找到答案吗？
The biggest thing right here on Christiania right now, everybody's talking about is downtown. We have that we call Pusher Street, Green Light District.
Yeah.
We always have trouble down there. It's not legal, you know, so the police come in and it's not so good no more.
Yeah, and it's very interesting being in this pub because it's just right next to the Pusher Street.
Pusher Street,
yeah.
This is the oldest pub that's been here almost as long as Christiania has been here.
酒馆的鲜丽缤纷的色彩涂装是酒馆迎宾讨喜的符码，几十年来成为居民的沟通桥梁，从政治、社会课题、社区议论到私人八卦，都在这里抽丝剥茧。
What is it that you really like most about Christiania?
Oh, the free spirit to think out of the box and not have to fit in the system. Here you can be round, square, you can be whatever. You will still fit in somewhere in Christiania.
Wow. Okay, so do you think Christiania has changed its original way of life?
Yeah.
And
From the 70s to today, yeah, of course, yeah.
刚刚跟 Eric 聊了之后呢，我了解到他们这里的居民现在很担心，因为 Christiania 正在进行转型啊。同时呢，政府也给他们施加压力，要他们建更多的房子，去帮助那些贫穷或者是低收入的族群。这样子一来，就会有很多的外来的影响，把它改变。Christiania 呢，会开始变成只不过是 Copenhagen 的其中的一个社区，就失去了它原有的特色。Kirsten 告诉我呢，这个呢，它以前啊是一个练马房，现在呢就是卖一些回收的东西、二手货品啊之类的。进去里面看看吧。Let's go.
Yeah. This building is very old. It's constructed in 1848. The first people that came to Christiania in 71, they started with a lorry because they could get to town to get building materials. And often they could get them for free. And then they could sell them here at a good price for people that were building. And many were building here in the beginning. So that was how they started up this.
所以就是那些早期来到 Christiania 的那些人呢，他们就到外头去，只要哪里有什么房子被拆除的，他们觉得值钱的可以再循环，他们就会拿到这里来卖，赚取的钱就会放在 Christiania 的那个 community box 里面。
这所绿色大厅是自由协作的起点，从最初的回收材料的分发，到至今的二手环保企业，让自由城建造了属于社区的污水处理设施，以及共同基金作为支付社区服务的费用。在这里，改造旧物、回收使用与分享都比购买新产品更受青睐。 为应付禁止汽车通行的限制，一群居民开设了一家自行车店，因而催生了克里斯蒂安尼亚自行车，一种附带一个箱子的3轮车，让居民可以在自由城里再送儿童和建筑材料。
We had a bicycle maker here called Lars, and he gave as a birthday present to his wife a bicycle like this. And on the same day, he got 2 orders.
Yeah.
And very quickly, this production was growing so big. And most of them are exported, and it's mostly for Germany and Holland, but also far away as to the United States, for instance.
你看它这个脚车真的是不便宜哦，你看一台这样的脚车大概要新币5-6千左右。其实以前在 Christiania，even 到现在也是这样子，就是它是不允许车子进入的。所以为了要方便载送货物啊，或者是送小朋友上学啊，他们就需要这样的一台脚车。
克里斯钦曾批判丹麦社会的基本价值理念，认为不相信出卖时间为雇主劳作即可获得人生幸福，强调通过自由劳动来获得生活所需。至今还是有人对这种社会机制深信不疑哦。一家3代都住在自由城的 Reggie 曾是教师和保安员，现在负责自由城的垃圾清理工作，同时也经营学童骑马学校。他所居住的房子曾经是克里斯蒂安尼亚第1栋用作制造炸药的军用房。
哇哦 ，Look at that！ 这房子很大哎，而且你看它这些屋梁都很厚。This is original, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, look at the walls.
Yeah, 1.2 meters.
你看，因为它这边以前是储存炸药的，所以呢，万一如果有爆炸事件的话，至少不会把旁边的房子或者把旁边的人炸死。所以它的墙壁都非常非常的厚。你来看看，1.2米哎，多么深！然后窗口在那边，哇，好看。And so this
is the first floor.
Okay, and it leads to your bedroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, you know what is so special about your house? 你看它的这个屋顶是这样子的。Did you know why it's done this way?
Yeah, it's because of the house have been used for making explosive. So if something goes wrong here, then the roof will go off instead of the walls falling down.
所以就是万一如果炸开的话呢，它就是把这个屋顶往上炸开，然后屋子就不会倒塌。所以它这边的木呢就稍微薄一些。
Reggie 的78岁母亲是第一批闯入废弃军营，生活在无水无电却能自给自足的私闯者，一住3代人，至今没想过要离开。
You must have loved Christiania very much to be staying here for generations after generations after generations. Why?
It's a kind of freedom. It's the hippies and like freedom.
Yep.
We can make our life
Yes.
in peace and harmony here.
Yeah. 所以其实，在70年代的时候，他们跟政府还是有很多的冲突的，是一直到89年之后呢，他们才达成了协议，然后他们也要交税啊，这样子才能够在这里很安逸的生活。
Yeah.
But have you ever met with any kind of discrimination?
Yeah, most the school, I can remember very much it was very difficult for me to change school. Also because we were coming from a very nice place out in Copenhagen. So suddenly she said, now we go to Christiania. And then we was moving out here. There's no toilet, no electricity. We couldn't see television and we couldn't anything. And all our friends were living in the other end of Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So it was also difficult for me to accept my life. So the first year I didn't say where I come from. But one day somebody found out that I was walking in here. And then they start make fun of me.
Oh.
Reggie 说，当年他和妹妹跟随母亲来到自由城，住在简陋的废弃屋，没有水电，自己动手制衣、种菜、养鸡，生活简单质朴。有人质问，他们来此居住是为了自由和理想，还是因为这里更容易生存？
Many people think that we're just taking the area and we don't pay anything for living here. But we did. We have always paid. And we were a community in the state. We were paying for the kindergarten, for everything in here, for the shops, when we were making new roads or fixing the houses. So the money we were paying to Christiania, and then the money was going out to all the different kinds of things we have to pay, and also the rent for the place here. But now a lot of people know that we pay. So I'm not afraid to say I'm come from Christiania anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
克里斯蒂亚尼亚社区结合嬉皮、自由、反战、叛逆、灵性及独立思考的概念，坚持不迎合世俗潮流的方向，走一条创新、颠覆却又前卫的路线。随着成为旅游热门打卡点，当地居民从擅自占地者变成了土地拥有者。自由之路是否已经变味了呢？
So for you, what would you say is the definition of freedom?
You can talk whatever you want, politics of the police, or
The freedom to express.
freedom to express yourself. Like now, be open-minded, talk about what's going on in your world, and talking about what's going on in my world.
For me, freedom is when you just go for something, like 110%, just go for it.
Yeah.
And you don't care. You just bulldozer it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that journey right there, that is freedom.
我在想啊，是不是要有了什么东西之后才算是自由，还是一定也得要舍弃了一些东西之后是自由？又或者是一定要做某些事情才算是自由？那么，如果你说自由是不被束缚，那么当你想着不要被束缚的同时，你其实就是已经在束缚了你自己。听得懂吗？听不懂，我懂了。
在上个世纪60年代的时候，世界各地兴起了各种形式的乌托邦潮流，也是在那时候出现了好几个乌托邦社区。不过，经历了数十年的改变和考验，现在还存在的乌托邦只剩下一个了。
位于南印度的黎明之城，是世界上硕果仅存的乌托邦。在这个已有55年历史的社区里，住着3300位来自60个国家的居民。他们放弃了私有财产，贡献自己的能力，为整个社区提供服务，依赖相互信任来维持这座乌托邦的运作，并且称自己为阿罗菲莲·奥罗维尔市民。 来自中国重庆的年轻女孩 Anandi 便是这其中之一。
今天带你来尝一下我们 Oroville 一个非常不错的餐馆，是印度人开的意大利餐馆。
好，那我要吃披萨。Hello, we would like to have an earth pizza and a vegan pizza.
这个就是我们付款的一种方式，我们不用现金，而是用我们个人的财务账号。
所以是赊账的意思吗？只要写名字就可以来吃东西啦。
不是赊账啊，因为 Oroville 跟外在的商业社会是不一样的。每一个 Oroville 的居民呢，有一个个人账号，账号里面呢一般是有一个金额。我们去超市、餐馆都用这个 Financial Service Number 来付款。
那这个 number 从哪里来？
金额的来源呢，可能是你个人的积蓄啊、投资啊、你的退休金呐，或者说在社区参加一些工作给的生活补贴，它是能够满足我们在 Oroville 的一个基本的生活需求的。
好吧，我们还先坐下来再谈，好不好？
好的，好的。
我好想了解这是什么系统哦，写名字就可以吃饭嘞，
不能随便滥用哦。
6年前 ，Anandi 决定放下翻译编辑的工作，环游世界。他在没有任何计划下踏上了印度的旅程，却偶然在图书馆 读到了关于黎明之城的信息。
当时读到了这样一个人类大同的实验场，对我的心灵震撼特别大，就觉得好像内在的一个什么东西突然就吻合上了。
对，
放下书马上就来了。
所以就是因为这个感动，让你决定住在这里。
我觉得是心里面有了一个决定之后呢，后来的这些事情它都会陆续自然的展开，它也逐步的坚定了我对继续在这里生活的一个信念信心。那么我来到了社区，我尝试了很多不同的工种，经过几年的探索，回归到了我觉得是我的使命一样的事情，就是翻译，把 Auroville 的理念，把创始人 Mother 和 Sri Aurobindo 的 Integral Yoga 这个综合瑜伽的内容翻译成中文，介绍给感兴趣的中文读者。
那你觉得现在的生活跟你以前的生活有什么不一样？
通常的主流的社会有一个主流认可的成功的标准，一个以工作、生活、家庭、个人人生目标为导向。
对。
但是来到 Auroville 其实就意味着我们回望过去，把过去生活当中那些有价值的东西留存在我们的生命里，同时在当下的生活中开创面向未来的生活。
哇，这非常有灵性的一句话。
作为一名游客，你可以轻松参观黎明之城，但要成为居民则不容易。面对长达几千人的等待名单，Anandi 必须做1年义工，与黎明之城建立长期稳定、彼此认同价值观的关系后，才获得委员会认可，称为奥罗维尔市民。黎明之城致力于打造自给自足的生态系统，满足居民日常所需。如今，社区有超过150种涵盖生活各个方面的小型商业单位。乌帕萨纳服装学院是其中的佼佼者。
I'm a trained fashion designer, and I felt as an Indian, I wanted to bring India's textile to Auroville as my gift.
Right.
But I had just 30 euro and one dream that I'd start a design studio under a tree.
With 30 euros?
Yes, that was the only capital we had.
Are you serious?
Yes. And now that has become a beautiful campus.
我觉得这个很神奇。今天跟村民们在聊天的时候，聊到说他们为什么会想要来这里，没想到他们的答案竟然都很类似。他们说他们都是误打误撞来的，好像是一种吸引力，他们是被吸引来的，而不是安排好要来这里的。
天性乐观的乌玛透过贷款，在这片贫瘠的土地上一栋接一栋地盖起了服装学院。在这间拥有22名员工的学院里，除了黎明之城的居民以及义工，乌玛还聘请了当地村庄的居民，慷慨地传授给他们缝纫和设计的技能。
When I looked around villages, they inspired me to work and train them in professionally, give them a better livelihood, create something beautiful, and I also had a job for myself. I'm a workaholic. I need to work. I like to work. I can't be sitting on the beach and walking. No.
And drinking your tea.
No, that will not work.
That's not you.
对乌玛而言，时尚不仅仅是精美设计，更在于资源的智慧应用，以改善生活。2004年，印度遭受大海啸的打击，造成巨大伤害。于是乌帕萨纳与渔民社区合作，发起了非盈利性的苏纳米卡项目。
One of my favorite things is to use design to create opportunity and a message at the same time. So one side, it creates job in the village and does trauma counseling. Another side, it builds ecology, and our children must love ocean and be responsible.
Cheer up, little girl. You have the power to save our city.
I'm so small. How can I have such powers?
If we do little things right, great things will happen. Isn't that right?
过去创造了现在，而今天的故事将塑造我们的未来。来自海洋的小女孩苏纳米卡的故事不仅荣获奖项，还被翻译成7种语言。
I feel grateful that through fashion and being a fashion designer, I'm able to do that.
Yeah， 真的。
It matters a lot to me.
乌玛做的事情真的非常有意义。他在这边不只是经营服饰店，他推广印度的布料，他帮助附近的村民有工作，他还关心世界。I should learn from you. I'm not doing much.
No.
I should do much for the society.
Yes.
乌帕萨那标志上的红点象征着印度妇女额头上的吉祥痣，凸显了乌玛致力于推广印度纺织品的决心。他们秉持有意识的可持续时尚，以掌控环境成本，不将其转嫁给后代。对于乌帕萨那，设计既是创造的表现，也是解决问题的工具。
Some things are not okay. Because in India, we have an issue of cotton farmer suicide. And there is so much of ecology damage we have created as a community. So I'm exploring a dimension of fashion can create a beautiful society.
在经历了24年的不懈努力后，如今的乌帕萨那不仅成为了南印度备受推崇的自觉服装学院，还是许多设计学校派遣学生前来学习的热门场所。近年，乌帕萨那更致力于开发有益于人类、推行环保的意识时尚品牌。
We use a lot of handloom, and some of our cotton are indigenous cotton. It means from the seed, it's original seed India has in cotton. And there is a lot of herbs as well. So pure indigo shirt in Upasana, if one wears it, you feel 5% cooler in your body than outside temperature. I am bringing less exposure of chemical on our body through fashion. For me, fashion is a step through conscious clothing.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
黎明之城的发起人阿尔法萨曾说：“黎明之城不属于特定任何人，但要生活在这里，他必须要是服从神性的志愿服务者。”黎明之城是物质与精神研究的基地，以在生活中体现真正的人类合一。
谈到 Auroville， 你就不能不知道它的发起人阿尔法萨和他的灵性导师奥罗宾多这一对灵魂伴侣。阿尔法萨很重视他的导师，把社区取名为 Auroville。Auro 是黎明的意思，但是它的读音刚好也代表了导师的名字奥罗宾多。
作为灵性生活的倡导者，阿尔法萨一直梦想创造一个超越国界和分歧，不分性别、身份、阶级或信仰，人人都能找到幸福与精神满足的地方。为了实现这个梦想，他购买了一块面积约2000公顷的红土地，计划建立一座黎明之城。这项计划获得了印度政府的批准，并得到联合国教科文组织的支持。
1968年的2月28号是 Auroville 正式奠基的日子。奠基当天有5000多人参加，其中还包括了124个国家和印度的青年代表。他们都带着自己国家的一把泥土，然后投入到一个瓮中里面。透过这个仪式呢，他们想要象征的是人类大同，也就是 Auroville 他们想要提倡的精神。
阿尔法萨是黎明之城的精神领袖，居民亲切地称她为母亲。92岁高龄的帕旭，最初因为孩子的教育需求，初次听闻母亲的名字。随后，他亲自会晤她，并深受启发，成为阿尔法萨的坚定追随者，因此被赋予帕旭这个名字。
From June 1968, I became what I call non-resident volunteer. So this is how my connection started with Auroville.
How was life back then?
Auroville was not yet manifest. There were a few people trying to plant trees, and a few huts were being built for the pioneers to live on here. So it was a very rough and ready life. Most of the people who were initial volunteers, majority of them were disgruntled with their own societies. Some of them are called hippies by flower children. So they are the pioneers of Auroville.
尽管年事已高，他仍然全情投入工作。如今，帕许负责一个名为“人类团结国际研究中心”的项目，积极实践黎明之城的理念。
Auroville has 3 visionary aspects. The dream of the founder, the charter of Auroville, and the physical objectives of Auroville.
Yes.
As a city.
通过3大愿景，阿尔法萨追求共享家园和包括身心灵的全面教育，强调个性尊重。他与建筑师安格尔合作制定了银河计划的蓝图，以金色的冥想室为中心，向外辐射12条街道，犹如银河注入人间。
Such a beautiful thing here. Oh my God, the view.
This is probably the most important building in Auroville. The Matre Mandir is the soul of the city. It's the place where the Aurovillians go to meditate or to concentrate.
以金球为外形打造的冥想室，由金箔碟片层层镶嵌，耗时40年才建设完成。它坐落在12块花瓣形状的褐色平台上，仿佛从天外坠落，与周围的自然景观形成强烈对比，是黎明之城的象征和心脏。
When I first saw the building and went inside, I have the feeling I was entering in a spaceship. So beautiful, and you can feel that there's a silence, there's a peace, and it's enveloping you. It's very magical in that sense.
来自法国的 Louis 在黎明之城居住了超过半个世纪，他与设计师安格尔交情深厚，对于银河计划有更深刻的了解。
Louis, so
Yes.
this is the Galaxy Plan model?
Yes.
Wow.
Roger Anger, the chief architect, he has proposed 4 different type of town: square town, nebulous, round town, and finally the mother has chosen this one.
根据阿尔法萨的愿景，黎明之城将成为一个容纳5万居民的社区，在圆形的区域内划分为住宅区、文化区、国际区和工业区4大部分，每个区域专注于社区生活的不同方面。
哇，在1968年的时候就可以想到这么有未来感的设计，很不可思议。As a developer, do you think this is a very brilliant idea?
Yes, for me, it is a spiritual vision of a town which is a spiritual town.
百废待兴的黎明之城为建筑师敞开了大门，吸引着他们前来，并成为社区的一部分。统计数据显示，这个社区的建筑师居住密度是一般城市的5倍。17年前，辛呼贾对黎明之城的建筑风格深感着迷，决定前来作为建筑实习生，以学习更多的建筑和环保技术。他在建筑师安格尔及其导师哈巴鲍的指导下，逐渐培养出了自己独特的建筑风格，并在5年前建设了自己的房子。
There were some existing structures when I came here. If you see, that tree is about 50 years old, and we designed the house to make sure that this tree doesn't get cut and the existing structures could get saved. So if you see that pavilion there, that's also about 40 years old. And my most favorite feature is this wall. It really makes me connect with the garden because the same material continues all the way through my living room onto the other side.
这里的村民们都有自己的节奏，在过一种慢生活。他们注重的是天人合一，他们讲求的是跟大自然的连接。因为当你跟大自然连接在一起的时候，其实你就跟全世界连接了。
在黎明之城，村民没有个人财产，不拥有任何东西，即使用个人资产建设的住宅、商店，都属于基金会。在这里，村民为社区、为愿景、为打造这座灵修城市而贡献服务。辛呼贾参与了建设黎明之城20多个项目，最让他津津乐道的是最能体现乌托邦理念的集体居住项目 Sunship。
The most important aspect of the building is the way it ventilates. There's a big central courtyard where there's a tree and the noise, air and the privacy of the residents is taken care of in a very special way.
三是在结构上遵循了黎明之城建筑一贯坚持的无污染和可持续的理念。它采用特殊的混凝土结构，内部填充了轻质砖块，结合再生能源和废水管理系统，超越了其他国家推行的绿色建筑计划标准。而 Louis 是这些项目的幕后推手。更重要的是，黎明之城的核心理念融入了每一寸空间，不限于建筑本身。
Auroville has to be a generosity to offer the lodging for the people who are working for Auroville.
The distribution of the apartments was half the apartments were given for free to people who come to Auroville with big heart but no money. Yeah. And the other half was given to people who have a lot of money and goodwill, and they subsidized for the people who came without money.
And to build such a big project, where does the money come from? You found it all yourself?
I didn't fund completely. I fund partly. I have been able to finance this because I was working in real estate in France. So I have been putting my own money to do this experiment to show that it is possible to find money and to offer the flat to the people who are working in Auroville.
多年来，黎明之城一直面临资金和人力不足的问题，无法依照银河计划的蓝图进行发展。距离阿尔法萨定下10年拥有5万个居民的目标，仍旧遥遥无期。
All the master plan was done with all the details drawing for the development of the city. But there is a lot of resistance to have this project to come down.
So the new governing board took their role very seriously, and one of their mandate is to implement the city as planned.
2年前，印度政府派遣新的人员，并且提供资金，为黎明之城的发展提供了重要支持。印度政府的介入引起一部分居民的不满，但是在黎明之城生活了14年的 Joel 却有不同的看法。
The government is not funding the habitation buildings. The government is funding the infrastructure. So if the government of India is ready to give a bit of money to help, honestly, it's a good thing.
Yeah, but when there's people, there's different opinions. Do you have conflict here in Auroville?
Of course, we are still human beings, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So learning to live together is what makes the experience extremely rich. But sometimes we have conflict and we work it out, right? We are going to meet, we shout a bit, and then we hug each other and we go forward.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we are all individual beings, so of course sometimes we disagree.
Yeah. Auroville 是个精神共同体，他们在这边是有相同的信念、相同的信仰，想要创造一个完美的新世界。但是完美对我来说是一个方向，它不是一个终点，因为它是一个需要追求的指标。我们永远都是在学习的路上。
Auroville wants to be a spiritual town before to be ecological, and utopia is possible here in Auroville. And I want to participate up till my last breath. I want to give my energy to build the city of Moser.
The most charming part of Auroville is invisible, because we are trying an alternative model with a new human beings and a new city. If we can make it happen, maybe it will inspire the rest of the world. And if you can connect to that, then somehow, and it makes you happy also, because you feel it.
Yeah. 哇，对Joel来讲说 ，Auroville 其实它的魅力是无所不在的，在这边你是看不到的，而是要去感受它。Let's feel the charm of Auroville.
You just be quiet and open.
在这边，然后慢慢的去呼吸，慢慢的感受这个大地的时候，突然有一刹那，觉得世界好像静止了，然后整个身体是往下，就是扎根的感觉。I'm getting emotional.
That's it. It's beautiful.
那个体验真的是非常的奇妙。我想是因为我们现在人的生活实在是太忙碌了，难得会有这种机会，可以真的沉淀下来，好好的感受这个世界，所以才会有这种很特别的感动。我想这也是为什么有这么多人会被 Auroville 吸引。
每年对乌托邦充满无限遐想的浪漫主义者，那些寻求避世与遗世独立的人， 在这里找到宁静，而那些渴望探索的入世者也在这个社区找到了归属。他们共同为打造世界大同的愿景而努力。